fade into the program, the 117 program, and they've come back to be part of the festival, to be interns. They might still be registered in the series, but as festival interns. But we do have people who graduated who come back. So Brittany Johnson is the first script doctor that we have who this year, we will have more tomorrow, who are 117 alumni but have graduated and are no longer at UCI. So for those, and there's also an update on other UCI alumni that's from the 117 program that's in the back of the program you have. Update on what's happening with our screenwriting alumni. So I'm going to read Brittany's bio, since she's our first script doctor this year. She's graduated. Brittany is currently a second-year Master of Fine Arts student at Chapman, where she studies screenwriting and has a fellowship. She's in her final term of the UCLA Professionals Program in Screenwriting. She's an alumni of 117 here, as well as a graduate of the UCI Extension Program in Screenwriting. Her work has been a semi-finalist at Slam Dance and Creative Screenwriting Expo, in addition to the UCI Screenwriting Festival. She's written 11 scripts, one of which has been read by several producers. Currently, she's working with an agent and a manager and is developing a spec script with a producer for the Hallmark Channel. So thank you for being here, Brittany. And what works and what needs more work?
Well, first off, I actually wanted to say something really quick about Volition, just because we've had a little conversation about it. But we were discussing, of course, the recent history we've had here in California about getting married. And something I think that's really going to help this script that we talked about is bringing up a tension between the fact that the...
Okay, wait, I'm going to ask you to hold that later so that these writers know what they're responding to.
Sure.
Okay, so let's bring that up when we have some more.
Okay. Well, hello guys. Okay. So we got a chance to talk before, and so one of the things that I know that they're worried about is we read 55 pages today, and they've got 77 pages, but they're really technically only at the midpoint, which you kind of want around page 60. So I know that cutting down things is definitely something you're thinking about. Now, another problem that you had mentioned, and I agree with, is that a lot of these things that happen in your script are very episodic. And something I think that you can actually kind of help both of those things is you can really take some of those scenes and shift them to the latter half of your script, because they don't necessarily matter to what's going on in the action here, which will also in turn help some of your structural problems that we have been talking to you about. You're up to your catalyst. We've got a lot that's going on, and it's not really setting up all that much. It's setting up how the characters kind of work together. We hear about the contest, but we're not really getting a sense of kind of who they are as people. Something about comedy that I just heard in lecture that was so brilliant is that comedy comes from pain. And so even though you want to keep everything light and funny, there's a place that's still going to come from every character. If you think of something like the 40-year-old virgin, for example, that's a really sad thing. And I know a 40-year-old virgin. It's really sad, trust me. And it is. It's like, he's dealing with this thing where all of his friends are all sexually active, and he's never done anything like that before. And so there is this place of pain that all the funny is coming from, and then there's funny. And his friends, of course, are also douchebags. And there's a place of pain where that comes from, where they haven't had any actually good relationships in their lives. So, and again, even though the whole movie is pretty much light and funny, you've got all these things that are very real to these characters. And you've got the beginnings of that definitely with Alex and her divorce. And I think you just need to keep getting deeper with them and find out more about their emotional lives. So I think would really just help everything right now. Because again, it really does feel like television. I don't know if you guys watch Big Bang Theory at all. It's like one of my favorite shows right now. So Big Bang Theory, what's great about Big Bang Theory is that all the characters are great, they all interact with each other, but none of them really has anything deep going on. Like once in a while they deal with it, and then it's over by the end of the episode. So you really need to carry things through and have, and another thing that I heard in lecture that was so great was that, in life, one thing happens after another, and in cinema, one thing happens because of another. So things aren't necessarily happening because something else happened. Mary, I think, is actually a really good person to have structurally, and she is a good character, and I think it's really great that even though she's very inexperienced, she's actually kind of showing up the rest of the girls. And I think that that's also going to, be a good conflicts that can come up later. And structurally, she's just fantastic for that. So, and then again, we have these things that happen one after another. Mary gets hired, Mary's helping a customer, and then and then the girls kind of start to like her, they throw a party, it's like these things are just all falling in place. So, think of things that can happen that really make things fall into place for everything. So it doesn't end up being episodic. So something doesn't just happen because you want it to. And some of the stuff, and again, but the big thing, as you all know from all the last read, you have some really, really funny stuff in here. I mean, and it's not just, I even wrote down that even some of the cheap jokes are original. So even though they're dumb penis jokes or whatever you want to, or however you want to say it, they're still just they're still very fresh, and you're not repeating things you do, but that's what she said. I'm okay with that. It's very hell mode, but it is. You do have some great humor. I love the song fight. I can totally see that. I'm like, why hasn't somebody thought of this before? And that's what I kept thinking through a lot of it with a lot of your humor, was that it is, why hasn't someone thought of this before? So that's a really good trait to have with your script, because you've got all these things that seem like they should be something that's happened, and it's not. So kudos on that stuff. And then I do have some specific things, some really small things for how to cut down on your pages, and we can go over that because I'm sure boring everybody else. But yeah, I do agree. You've got some large chunks of dialogue, and again, just cut to the funny. If it's in there and it's not funny, get rid of it. There's the conversation that Alex has with her soon-to-be ex-husband, and she says 3 or 4 things that are important, and they're surrounded by 6 or 7 things that don't matter. And if it doesn't matter, what's there? And then the other thing too is that the characters are individuals. I know it in my head, but I don't necessarily see it on the page or see it on the screen. Everything a character says should be from who they are as a person. So, and I feel like sometimes the characters are just kind of saying things because they need to get said, and they're not saying things how they would say them. And any person in a comedy, this is from the same comedy lecture, was any person in a comedy should have a funny attitude or something funny to say. And if they're not doing that, then the comedy really isn't accomplishing what it's meant to do. So just be sure that everything that's there is either about that character and their funny attitude, or they're saying something that's actually funny. The fact that you have this many good jokes is a really good sign. I've heard a lot of comedies where I laugh maybe once a page, and that's good. So you really have the beginnings of something that's very, very funny. And we also have this great world that's not something we really deal with a whole lot. We don't deal with this lingerie thing.